Live on WFLA Now. With a specialized degree in climate, Chief Meteorologist and Climate Specialist Jeff Baradelli is pioneering the way we look at climate and extreme weather. Welcome to Jeff's Climate Classroom, powered by ArmorView Window and Door.
All right, welcome everybody. In this week's Climate Classroom, we are talking about a climate topic that weighs on the minds of the masses. How can you help individually with climate change? Now, climate change is such a monstrous challenge that it feels like any one person really can't do much, can't make a difference. It is, in fact, overwhelming knowing even where to start. But the theme of this episode is do what you can, what you are in the best position to do, and plant a seed. Because the best way that you can make a difference is to help spur change through your actions. My guest today is my colleague, the very climate curious, as I say, Val Simpson. Val, thanks for doing this with me.
Yes, Jeff, of course. I love the topic. And as soon as you told me about it, I wanted to jump in on this Climate Classroom episode because I have a lot of questions. I feel like you are speaking to me when you brought up this topic.
No, I love that you, first of all, Val sits right next to me in the weather office. She does some of our weathercasts, some in English, and of course the Spanish weathercast, because if I tried to do the Spanish, it would not turn out well.
No.
But what I've noticed is that she's not just joining me on this show because I was looking for someone to join. She actually really is interested in this stuff, is constantly asking me questions and driving me crazy.
Yeah. I hope I'm not driving you that nuts, but yeah, I love learning more each day, and I enjoy when you explain the way that you do. And one of the things that I do have to mention is that for me, climate change could be kind of overwhelming, scary at times. I don't really know how to tackle it, and I like your approach to it. I feel comfortable. I don't feel like you're shoving information down my throat or certain beliefs. I do believe that I can learn a lot from it, and that's one of the things, when we touched on this topic, that basically you were like, don't worry, do what you can. It's not about, but I can't help, but feel overwhelmed and, like I said, a little scary at times.
There's a lot of pressure, I think. And I think one of the missteps of the environmental movement is trying to force people to do stuff. People hate when you tell them, don't drive a big truck, don't eat steak, don't eat beef. In fact, the first thing that's responded to from whenever someone says don't eat meat is, I'm going to go home tonight and eat a big steak.
Right.
They do the opposite of what you asked them to do. So I'm a big proponent, and just everybody I think wants to be a part of the solution if they know there's a problem, if there's a way that they can do it. So the point is, I think first and foremost, just kind of picking what you're best at. I happen to be well suited to help people with climate change because I'm an atmospheric scientist. I have a degree in climate change as well.
Yep.
And I'm in a position where I have a platform and I can educate people on it.
Right.
So I'm doing what I can. And by the way, also, we'll talk about this, but I'm a minimalist.
Yes.
Not just because of climate change, but that's just my nature.
Yeah.
But being a minimalist actually kind of helps with climate change as well.
I have a hard time with that.
Yeah,
I admire you. I admire you for that. I noticed that.
But that's just my nature. That's just my nature. And the point is everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
So help in the way they can. Maybe you have the means with which to buy a brand new, nice SUV. Maybe you can put solar panels on your house. Yeah. Maybe you don't like meat, or maybe you for health reasons, you can give meat up. Great. That's going to help. The point is just picking and choosing what you're best suited for. I have a graphic I want to just pull up real quick. And then after that, we're just going to go one by one and talk about these individuals.
Sounds good.
So curbing climate change. Do what's best suited for you. I think that the one thing I want to get across here, number one, first and foremost, is any one individual action you take, like changing a light bulb or making your home more energy efficient or putting solar panels on your house or buying an EV, you're not really having any kind of impact. It's a drop in a tremendous bucket. But you are influencing the people around you, your friends, your family, your neighbors.
Your kids.
The theme here is that we need system-wide change. We need systemic change. Yeah. And when you do these things, you're leading the way. You're acting as a leader in your little, in your community, in your neighborhood, in your family, whatever it is. I would also say the other thing is the power of the pocketbook, right? Probably the biggest way that you can have an influence is by using your wealth. Whether you have $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, $10 million, that's probably the biggest way that you can make an impact. Val, you buy a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Unfortunately.
So let's say I'm going to talk about makeup, okay? Because you wear makeup. You became a platinum member today. You told me you became a platinum member.
You're
You
cracking me
can't
up.
tell me anything because I'm going to rat you out. I'm going to tell the masses.
I know.
But the point is there a makeup company out there that is more sustainable than the others? And if
wow.
it is,
Good point.
then maybe that's where Val can make the biggest impact.
Absolutely. That resonates. I get that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I have to spend the money anyway, and I'm going to buy makeup no matter what. So I might as well do a little research and see where I can invest.
See, we
I
learned
like that.
something new today. Okay. And I always say, vote for your climate candidate. I'm never going to sit here and tell you who to vote for. I'm never going to do that.
Good
right?
job.
I'm
Yeah,
never
I don't
gonna
like
do that.
political talk.
I'm never going to tell. I hate politics.
Yes,
I'm
me
never
too.
going to tell you vote for this person. I would just say do your research and figure out, which candidate, best aligns with your commitment to the climate and to the environment. That's it. But obviously that's a big impact too,
advice.
right? It's
Yeah.
bigger than changing your light bulbs.
Right.
Okay, so that's how you can make a change system wide. But how about personally? Food
Yeah.
waste. Do you know, Val, that we waste 40% of our food here in America?
Wow.
40%.
No, that's.
I mean, there are people starving in
astonishing.
Africa. There are
Right.
people starving down the street from
Yeah.
you. So the point is you're not just helping, you're not just helping the climate. You're helping just be a decent person by
Right.
eating the food
Right.
and not wasting valuable
Yeah.
food, right?
Yes.
The food choices you make are important. The efficiency of not only your food choices, but also of your home.
Okay.
EVs, solar, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So with all that said, Val, let's start with the questions. We can go through these one by one.
Sounds good. Let's get into it. One of the things that I want to talk about, it's actually related to food, as a matter of fact. What is a good way? How can we not waste food? And I'm going to piggyback that question with beef consumption.
Okay.
What can we do in order to help with climate change and not consuming or consuming beef?
I don't know, how to help people not waste food other than just be more cognizant of it. It's something I think about all the time. When I see leftovers in the fridge, I make an attempt to. I realize sometimes the second time around they're not as good as the first time, but
yeah.
But I mean, I think it's the right thing to do, and it's not just me being a minimalist. I mean, there are valuable resources on this earth, right?
Yeah.
We're killing animals oftentimes or fish
Yeah.
to make our food, or we're using valuable land. Or people put a lot of work. Farmers put a lot of work into growing their produce. So I just think it's responsible to just be responsible, and so I would just say be more cognizant. Think about it, and buy a little less when you go to the store. So I don't have any other.
Yeah.
I don't have any magic bullets there.
Yeah. No, that's an easy one for me. I mean, I grew up in South America. I come from a Latin family. We would eat leftovers for 3 days if that was the case. By day third, we're like, okay, I hope, I don't think we were a big family, so we didn't have anything left after 3 days. But yeah, I mean, I can adapt to that, and that's good. It makes me feel like I am helping the environment by eating the leftovers.
And the reason why is because food is very intensive. It's very carbon intensive. The amount of land that is cleared, trees that are cleared for grazing land, for cattle, or for growing food is tremendous. Trees suck up carbon dioxide. So when you get rid of the trees, you're getting rid of nature's way of mitigating climate change, getting rid of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
Right, balancing it out, yeah.
So you eating less food just simply by not wasting has a big impact. You asked about beef, right? Okay.
Yeah, because that would be something that I would have a very hard time not doing.
Yeah.
Again, South America, we're big beef eaters, consumers.
That is true, right? Argentina, right? And you're from Argentina.
That's right, yeah.
Huge beef eaters down there.
Yes.
Right? Uh-huh. So beef has a huge carbon impact and environmental impact. But I would never tell people don't eat beef because so many people love beef. I used to love beef. I should tell you that I walk the walk. I don't eat meat. Just so you know.
Good. How long has it been since you stopped eating meat?
About 8 years.
Wow,
And it was
that's a
more
long
for
time.
animal cruelty reasons. My wife just learned a little bit about the way, the industrial agriculture works, and it really bothered her. She's very sensitive, my wife.
Shout out to Christy.
And listen, when my wife says something, I listen. I'm
Very
not stupid.
smart man.
Okay, I'm not stupid. Happy wife, happy life.
That's right.
No, but in all seriousness, I realized that it was the right thing to do for us. So
Yeah.
I haven't eaten meat in 8 years. Well, I will tell you that first of all, beef is by far the most carbon intensive food. At least twice as much.
Really?
Yeah, at least twice as much as any other food out there.
Yeah.
Pork is a close second to that, lamb, and cheese. And I have not given up cheese. I'm Italian, and I think I could be excommunicated from from my family and
Okay.
from the whole country of
Yeah.
Italy if I were to give up cheese. So I haven't given up cheese. The point is there are some things I'm not willing to give up, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's the point about beef. Is a lot of people just aren't willing to give it up. But there are other
You're
ways that you can make an impact.
you're
Oh, by the
able to
way,
balance it out.
50% of a person's carbon footprint as it pertains to food is meat. 50%. So if
Wow.
you just gave up meat,
Yeah.
you're basically giving up about 50% of your carbon footprint.
I'm gonna have to put that on my list. It's gonna be a challenge.
Just
to
eating
change
less,
that.
though.
Yeah,
is-
maybe
is
less.
helpful. Giving it up totally, you're just going to replace it with other food which has
Yeah.
a carbon footprint. So even just reducing it helps.
That could help. Good deal. Well, the next topic would be where to put your money. And you kind of gave me a perfect example, one that really resonated with me, and it was where do you buy your makeup? So I think that's a really good advice. What else can you tell me about money? What are other ways that we can decide where to invest or where to put our money?
Yeah, the products you buy, right? So we talked about makeup.
Yeah.
But let me give you an example of a company. Patagonia is widely known as one of the most environmentally friendly companies on earth. They do a lot of things right. So maybe next time you have a choice, you go to the store and you're going to buy a piece of clothing that may be an outdoors type
Yeah.
of clothing. Maybe you patronize Patagonia, even though perhaps, and I don't even know, maybe it doesn't cost more. But even if it costs $10 more, maybe
Yeah.
it's worth it for you to make an impact that way. Maybe you have enough disposable income so you can make an impact that way.
Yeah. Because they're a little pricey,
What?
Patagonia.
Are they? Yeah,
A little.
I don't know. See, I don't know really.
Yeah.
But the point is, again, it doesn't have to be Patagonia. It could be any company that's
Right.
that's good.
Gotcha.
That's good for the environment. Also, there's a big divestment movement. It gets a little
Yeah.
controversial, but it is happening, so it's worth me telling you.
Yes.
About $40 trillion have been divested or money taken out of investments that are not considered clean by whoever's divesting from them. So, for instance, the city of Kansas City has divested from fossil fuels. So, essentially, investing in products that investing in the market as it relates to what would not be considered clean energy. Okay,
Yeah.
It's not always the same. Every divestment's a little different. Harvard University did it as well. The state of Maine
Oh, wow.
divested from fossil fuels. So there's that's going on. It's about $40 trillion has been taken out. And that has created some political controversy, but it is something that is going on. So if let's say you're a person
Yeah.
of means, meaning you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars that you're investing, maybe think about greening your portfolio. I've done it. So again, I walk the walk in every way that I possibly can.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways that I do it.
Yes, you check off all the items on the list, Jeff.
Well, the point is though is to send a signal to the market or send a signal to the company or send a signal, right? You're planting seeds and you're also other people around you. Let's say you bought an nice EV, and we're going to be talking about EVs, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you bought a nice EV and your neighbor's like, wow, that's a great EV. Now all of a sudden your neighbor's getting an EV and their neighbors may see it and get an EV. So the point
Right.
is kind of spreading it out.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is one that is very serious. It's about our political choices. This is another way that we can contribute, correct?
Yeah, and we mentioned that, right? I think your vote counts. And there are political candidates that care about the environment, and there are political candidates that don't care as much about the environment. There are political candidates that are funded by opponents of curbing climate change. So the point is just doing your homework. I won't really go much further than that because I really do like to stay out of politics.
Yeah, I agree.
Not that much comes from politics, but I will say that the bill that Congress passed over the past couple of years, the Inflation Reduction Act, is doing a tremendous amount to curb climate change. Really, a lot, because it's investing in a lot of U.S. manufacturing of clean energy. But at the same standpoint, I will also say that this administration is drilling and producing more oil than we have in years, and more gas, natural gas. So the United States is actually the leader in production of oil and gas now, and at the same time, with the right hand, something completely opposite is going on with the left hand. We're also becoming leaders in the green space as well.
Right.
So the point is I'm not going to go full bore into one political party or another.
Yes.
It's just this is simply what's going on right now.
Right. Yeah. But one of the things that I do want you to explain is in terms of the fact that we are drilling, but we're utilizing that energy for other things, right? For instance, not necessarily to power up our cars, because the idea is that we can go electric. So because there are other things that require the burning of fossil fuels, right? And we can't find a replacement for that.
There are certain things like airplanes. I absolutely hate it when people are shamed for flying. There is no other way to get from New York to California, really,
Right.
or especially from New York to England or wherever you're going.
Yeah.
You can go visit your relatives. You can go on vacation. There are just no alternatives right now. So when it comes, but flying is, I think, less than 2% of the carbon footprint out there. So
Yeah.
it's a decent sized chunk. But the bottom line is there's no alternative. So why are you going to shame people for flying? They have to fly. There's no other way of getting there. Now, there are people who might decide to fly from West Palm Beach to Tampa. Then maybe they deserve a shame, right? Because they could drive.
Right.
Same thing maybe to Miami. But
Isn't
once you
there
get
a
little-
train?
What'd you say? There is the Brightline, but
Okay.
you can get from Orlando down
Right.
to, you can't quite get to Tampa. But the point is yes. And a lot of people are utilizing private jets, right? So that's another way where people say, well, they deserve to be shamed as well.
Okay.
I'm not going to shame anyone. But so yes, there are decisions that you can make when it comes to transportation. Driving, by the way, transportation is the biggest emitter of carbon in the United States. So if you can get an EV, you will substantially cut your carbon impact. From the get-go, Val, and we talked about this before, and people always say this, well, even if you're driving an EV, you still have to plug that EV into a grid, and that grid is
Right.
powered by gas. That may or may not be true depending upon which state you are watching this from, right? In some
Right.
states, it's cleaner than others. But I think the more important thing is EVs are much more efficient than gas cars. EVs, 90% of the energy that an EV has, so in the battery of an EV, that goes to actually turning the wheels and powering the car.
Right.
Whereas when it comes to internal combustion engine, a gas-powered car, about 75% of that energy, the gas energy, is lost. So of the $50 that you're spending on filling up your gas tank,
Yeah.
you're losing like $30 or $35 of that. So it's
Yeah.
not just a question of it being dirtier and worse for the environment. It's just the cars are not as efficient. So
Right.
that's a way that you can make an impact. And again, I'll say the same thing. You buy an ICE EV, and other people will buy EVs around you.
Right.
Let me just, one more thing.
Yeah.
You can buzz me anytime.
Okay.
You can buzz me
Yes.
anytime.
No, but I love this topic. I can't buzz you right now. Let me just buzz you one more time just in case Dave is watching right now.
Anyway.
That was
Yes,
for you,
yes,
Dave.
okay.
All right.
Well,
Let's,
yeah, if he is. It's interesting. Tesla. So they really became the kings of the EV market.
yeah.
How did they do it? They didn't do it by necessarily saying, "Oh, we're going to invent this car that's really great for the climate." I'm not even sure I ever heard Tesla say that.
Yeah.
They never led by saying, "We're going to be an environmental company." I don't really know if they care about being an environmental company. I have no idea. But what they did is they made it a status symbol.
Right.
They built a car that people wanted. They built a car that was
looked
nice.
good.
They started in
Yes.
the luxury market. They didn't
Right.
start at the bottom of the market. They started at the top, which
Yeah.
was the opposite of what a lot of car companies did. And by
Wow.
doing so, people saw the Tesla and was like, oh, that's a cool car.
Yeah.
And they're like, and oftentimes they're wealthy people
Yeah.
who just want a
We're
toy and they
attracted.
go out and get that toy.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, people see it. It becomes more affordable, and everybody then is buying Teslas. It's a very common car on the
Great
on the road today.
strategy.
The point is it can be contagious. Going green can be contagious without even knowing that you're going green.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I love that. Planting that seed. I love that. Let's talk about living smaller.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean?
Well, I'm a minimalist, right? So, and look, this is a tough one because this is really a life choice, right? I don't live in a house. I live in a condo. A lot of my life, I lived in Manhattan.
Yeah.
But I lived in South Beach in Miami. But almost everywhere I've lived, except for one time, and when I was growing up,
Yeah.
but one time in my adult life, I lived in a house. Otherwise, I've always lived in condos, and they've been small. So the amount of square footage of my condo is about half of the average American home.
Wow. Right.
And so, obviously, the
help.
less space you have to heat, the less space you have to light,
Totally.
the more energy you're saving.
That makes sense.
Also, I live close to work. So even if I did have a gas car, and I have a plug-in hybrid, by the way, so I do use gas and I use electric. But but because I live so close to work, I don't have to burn that much gas. It's another way that I'm efficient.
Yeah.
And then the other way, obviously, as I said, I don't eat meat, and my
Yes.
family doesn't eat meat.
Yes.
So again, we're eating foods that are less carbon intensive.
Very good.
That's not for everyone, but it is
No.
it is worth mentioning that
Sure.
living a life where you're living an efficient life is a life that's better for the environment.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really do like how you're saying that, it's about what's easier for you, and you don't have to do everything, but start somewhere, make it happen. Great. I think we kind of covered a lot. I think you even touched on the fact that every state It depends on how they power up. And, it doesn't necessarily mean that if a state that is using or burning fossil fuel to power up their grid and the whole state could have EV cars, it's not going to help that much, but it also depends on the changes that we're seeing in each state. And you did mention Florida, right? Florida is
getting better.
We're getting better.
We're getting better. Traditionally, we don't have the greenest grid by far.
Okay.
But this year, the utilities have added more solar than even the states of California and Texas.
Wow.
Which is a big jump in the right direction. And I don't know exactly if that's for economic reasons. I don't know exactly why the legislature, or not the legislature, but the utilities here in Florida have decided now's the time to add solar. It may just simply be economics. Solar is cheaper.
Yeah.
It is in many cases cheaper, especially in a place like Florida where we have a lot of sun. That may be it. It may be something to do with the Inflation Reduction Act or there's another law that was passed by Congress that invests in infrastructure act or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is it could be subsidies that are coming from the federal government.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure, but the grid here in Florida is getting cleaner. There are places where it is less clean.
Right.
Kentucky is one of those places. West Virginia, another one, because they've traditionally relied on coal. Although even those areas are starting to become slightly green.
Right. But it makes me excited to know this about Florida, the state where we live in, because when we look to California, I feel like they are way ahead of us in terms of any type of improvements or in order to help climate change. So that's really good about Florida.
Yeah, California does great. And this is a surprising one. Texas, tremendous.
Really?
Because they have a lot
I would have
of,
never guessed
Because,
Texas.
you oftentimes associate cleaner, greener energy in states that are essentially a little more blue and a little less red, right?
Yes.
But Texas has tremendous wind resources, especially in the western part of the state.
Yeah.
And they get a lot of their power from wind. And wind, when the wind blows, is the cheapest by far power that there is. North Dakota, South Dakota, a lot of wind up there as well.
Yeah.
So Texas just happens to have those resources. And it's interesting because it competes against oil. And there are essentially this big wind and big oil competing against each other in Texas right now.
Also, big cattle state.
Big cattle.
Right? So they have to balance that out, I guess,
That's
somehow.
True. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
How about, can we touch on solar panels?
Oh, we didn't. Yeah, that was the last thing that I had on my on the list. Tell me about solar panels. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest with you. The idea really sounded very exciting, intriguing, especially to my husband. We had a meeting with a solar panel sales associate. And when we crunched the numbers, it was really hard for us to justify. Basically, we came to the conclusion that unless we were going to be living in that property, that home,
That's right.
it wouldn't make any sense for us to do it right now.
Yeah, you either have to, one or two things. You either have to live in the home for like 20 years, right?
Okay.
I think, something like that.
Yeah.
Or you have to assume that when you sell the house that you're going to get the value of the solar panels back to an extent.
Yeah.
Now, if you have solar panels, first of all, you're selling some of that excess power. So if you produce excess power, that's being sold back at a retail price to the power company. So oftentimes that even if you are not generating all your own power and a certain amount of the power is still coming from the grid, which often it is, you're nullifying that because you're being paid by the power company for the excess power you produce during the day. Yeah. And so your bills end up being very low. But you got to remember that your power bills are not just for energy, they're also for the upkeep of the grid. So you're getting charged a lot of fees on your, if you look at your power bill, you'll see that
I've seen
only
that.
a portion of it is energy. A lot of it is just the shared commitment that we have to maintain a grid and the upkeep of the grid itself. But you know what and I know you saw this in the article, so I'll let you answer. It's fine. You can cheat. What is the biggest predictor of whether or not a house will have solar panels?
Oh.
You mean to tell me that you didn't take your cheat sheet with you?
I have it in front of me right here, but I can't read fast enough.
It's okay.
What's the
it's
predictor?
If someone else has solar panels in your neighborhood.
Well, that's the reason why we actually contacted the sales associate, because all of our neighbors were getting solar panels, and it was like a domino effect. We were like, should we consider this? What's going on? Why is everybody getting solar panels? Are they giving them? We were like, what's happening? So obviously that's what intrigued us, and we sat through the presentation, but it was exactly because of that reason.
So you just proved my point that you can be contagious and that you can plant the seed, and it can go further than just your personal carbon footprint. You can have an influence on the people around you because your neighbors had an influence on you. So the biggest predictor of whether or not someone has solar panels is if other people in the neighborhood also have solar panels.
Yeah.
That's the way solar grows. And so that's not just a testament to solar panels, it's a testament to EVs. And it's a testament to just talking about climate change. The one thing we haven't talked about
Yeah.
is talking about it, right? A lot of people stay away from it because someone in their family or a couple of people in their family don't like the topic of climate change. It's become
Very
politically
political.
controversial.
Yeah.
But the truth is that 90% of Floridians, and really something like 90% of the people in the world, know that climate change is happening.
Yeah.
And somewhere around 2/3 or greater than that understand that it's being caused by humans and the burning of fossil fuels and the release of greenhouse gases.
Yep.
So it's not really as controversial as you think. And more than half, it's really it's a majority, and it's close to 2/3 also are concerned about climate change.
Right.
Something like 40% of people worldwide think that they will be displaced in the next 30 years by climate change. Think about that.
That's scary.
40%, almost half of the world, believes that climate change will displace them, meaning they'll have to move from their home. And there are people here in the Bay Area, right? You live in a very low-lying area. 30 years from now, you may be forced to move because you're right by the Gulf of Mexico or you're right by Tampa Bay.
Well, we had that conversation. That was something that I'm also concerned about.
Right. And that's something you've brought up with me.
Yeah.
If you're in California and you're near an area that gets fires, you may have to leave very soon because you might not be able to get insurance on your home
Right.
or a mortgage. The
Yeah.
people who buy your home. So the point is that people are worried about climate change. So you don't have to worry that people don't accept it. Yes, there are a few loud people who are unwilling to believe that climate change is happening or that humans are contributing. But it is a very small minority of people. They just happen to be very loud.
I do believe that also could come from a place of fear because it could be a little scary when you talk about these topics, like, what do you mean displaced? Where am I going to go? My family, I lived here my whole life, for instance, right? And I think that sometimes it's a kind of like a coping mechanism to just, blur out or be
to
like, oh,
ignore
this is
it.
not real or this is not happening.
Yeah.
Something that I did learn on your show and that I did take after having many conversations with you is that, obviously the planet, the Earth has gone through changes, throughout time. And we've seen that happen. It's cooled up, it's cooled down, or it's heated up. And we've seen those changes. So naturally, climate change is something that's constantly happening.
Right.
What we do need to understand is that humans, we are actually accelerating that process.
right. Yeah,
and that is one
exactly.
of the things that I keep, when I have these conversations, and because I get that answer a lot, kind of like,
the climate's
climate
always
change is
changed.
always changing.
Sure,
Like
that's a
it's
pretty
normal. This
typical
is going to
comment.
happen. And I'm like, no, we understand that. It's just that, we need to slow it down. We need to do what we can in order to preserve it for as long as we can for our children.
We are warming at a rate that is something like 50 times that of the rate when we came out of the last ice age. So it's 50 times a natural warming pace. And that was when we were actually coming out of an ice age, not
Right.
even when the climate was stable. It's been stable for about 10,000 years. To give you something else to think about,
Yeah.
something that we can't help and that is baked in for centuries to come is sea level rise. Even if we stopped warming tomorrow, we would stop a lot of the worst impacts of climate change. That's great. But the momentum, the inertia in the ocean system and in the ice cryosphere system, when we get to 2 Celsius warm, we're up to we're almost at 1.5 degrees Celsius warming. We'll be there by 2030.
Yeah.
But we're kind of there almost already. When we get to 2 degrees Celsius, new research shows that if we're there and we stay there for a while, we will have committed ourselves to between 30 and 60 feet of sea level rise in the future, no matter what we do, no matter what we do, unless we reel it back really quickly. And that's not easy to do right now. So 30 to 60 feet of sea level rise means that most of Florida will, in fact, be gone.
Oh, my God.
That 500 years from now, there won't be a Florida. It'll be underwater. That's the truth. It's very likely that that's the case. We're not trying to scare anyone. I mean, none of you are going to be around 500 years from now.
No.
I mean, I don't even know if humanity is going to exist 500 years from now.
Yeah.
But what I can say is the impacts of climate change ratchet up quickly from generation to generation. So my daughter and your children will feel the full force of climate change, and it's a big burden on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And their children, well, it's going to be existential for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's maybe for us, it seems like, well, we're going to die before we have to deal with the worst of it. That may be true.
Yeah.
But the point is that there are real impacts. Think about this. We're already, basically by 2050, we will have already committed ourselves to 30 to 60 feet of sea level rise just because of the influence of human warming in the future.
Yeah.
We're not going to be here to see it because it'll happen over the course of hundreds of years.
Understood.
But it's going to happen.
Right. That's unbelievable. It's crazy to think that. But I do want to tell you, these were my takeaways from today's episode. Plant the seed, talk the talk, and walk the walk, at least with the things that you can do, right?
Yep, I'm putting that graphic back up for anybody who missed it.
Yeah.
System change is the most important thing, and you can be a part of that by just simply talking about it, by educating people on it, by getting active, by making sure you vote for the right candidates, by making sure that you vote with your wallet or your pocketbook. And then there's personal things that you can do, like not using as much food, stop, wasting less food, food choices that you make, your home's efficiency, EV, solar, et cetera, et cetera. There are lots of examples of this.
And buy makeup in places where they're more environmentally friendly.
That's right. And there's lots of examples of makeup, right? It's where you purchase your clothes. It's where you purchase your whatever. Where you purchase everything. All right. Well, Val, I want to thank you once again for always being a great guest. One more time, Jeff, with the...
Let's do it just for the heck of it. There you go. Woo-hoo!
All right. And by the way, for folks that are watching for the first time, like, what is that buzzer for? That's to shut me up. All right. Sometimes I talk too much, and sometimes they have to press that button just to get me to shut it down.
No, but today was good. Today we took a lot of really, we had a lot of great insights.
Yep, I appreciate it, Val. Thanks a lot, Val, and I want to thank everyone for joining me. And one more thing I want to show you, there's an article up on the website where we kind of reiterate some of these points here. How can you help curb climate change? Go to WFLA.com, go to the weather tab, click on Climate Classroom. You should see that article right there. I want to thank you once again for joining Climate Classroom. You can listen to this on Spotify. You can listen to this on Apple Podcasts. You can also watch this on YouTube once we package this up. We're going to send it later today to YouTube, and it should be available. I think we're going to send it express mail, Val. We're going to send it express mail. We're going to pay a little extra for the express mail. Okay, yeah. And it should be available on YouTube as well as WFLA.com and on our Facebook page as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining me, and I'll see you again next week for Climate Classroom.
Watch or listen to Jeff's Climate Classroom, powered by ArmorView Window and Door on WFLA social media platforms, and find Jeff's climate reports on WFLA.com.